Hello, my name is Katerina Beatty, and I'm with the Spencer Road branch. Welcome to the St. Charles City County Library's virtual Discover Your Best Life series. Tonight's program is how to create a speech with a wow factor. Public speaking is an essential tool that we can use to make a difference in the world by sharing our expertise and story. If not knowing how to create a speech is holding you back from saying yes to speaking engagements, this session will help you learn the process of creating great content, develop an outline for your next speech, and learn the one skill that creates an engaging presentation that will guarantee your success. Tonight's presenter, Lisa Bianco, is a certified life coach, professional organizer, international speaker, author, and proud Toastmaster who leads highly interactive workshops at conferences and life-changing retreats. She is an entrepreneur, and the owner of Power is Within Coaching. Lisa enjoys sharing her knowledge and expertise of public speaking with others in hopes that they may find the power within themselves to go out and change people's lives with their story. Tonight, we also have Dawn Tucker with us, who is in the audience, and she's from Toastmasters, and she's the one who brought these great speaking engagements to the library. Thank you, Dawn, and welcome.
Thank you. And welcome, everybody. It's good to be here, and I appreciate you being here, especially on a nice night like tonight. And I just have a question for you. Who here, raise your hand, or you can put it in chat if you want to give a speech, but you're struggling in how to put it all together. Anybody? Well, if you are struggling, you are in the right place. Today, I'm going to share with you the one skill that creates an engaging presentation that will guarantee you deliver a successful speech. I'm also going to share how to create great content for your next speech that will wow your audience. And finally, we're going to develop an outline for your next speech for you to be ready to say yes when you get asked to speak. So let's begin with that one skill. If you master this, you are guaranteed success. Anybody want to guess what that is? I'm having trouble seeing chat. Okay, so that skill is create value for the audience. It's the audience, they're taking the time to be here with you. So I appreciate everybody that takes the time to be tonight, to be here with me today. So you want to create value and honor, because time is something you can never give back. It's the old, I don't know if you ever heard of it, the WIFM, what's in it for me? You want to respect people's time, and that's all about, it's not selfish, it's just what's in it for me. What am I going to get out from being at this speaking engagement? If you create value for the audience, you're guaranteed success. Let me give you a little example. Your job is to inform, not impress. I was at a speaking engagement, and it was a panel, and they had two publishers. And the one got up, and her presentation was spectacular. She started off with this PowerPoint that it was like Star Wars. It was like it took you to another galaxy. It was like, wow. And she was dressed out perfect, and everything was perfect until she started speaking. At first, she says, well, you know, people come to me all the time and they want me to read their books, and they didn't, you know, use me as a publisher, and the books are just awful. And the person is sitting in the audience, and we're, oh my. And then she goes, and Matt here, he used me, but if he can write a book, anybody can write a book. And then she's like, and Bob, yeah, you called me to do helps, you know, with your book, and then you never hired me. I don't know what's going on with that. She starts, you know, it was all about her. Like it was all about giving business to her. It wasn't about the audience. Now the other publisher comes up and she doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles. She just showed up as herself and she starts speaking to the problems. This is how I can help you. This is what I can do for you. So she was informing them, not about impressing them. And can you see the difference? Because when I went to write my book, of course, I went with a person that wasn't cutting down people in the audience. So how do you create value? And that value is that wow factor. You want them to say, wow. So the first thing is learning something. What can they learn? And actually, when you're in the service industry and you're speaking, it gives you credibility. It makes you look like the expert. And then what do people with experts? They pay attention to you. So what can you teach the audience to say, wow, that's awesome. I'm so glad I learned that. So glad I came today. Another way to create value is make a change in their life. Behavior change is hard. It's not easy. If you give them some little tidbits on how they can change their behavior for the better, they're going to say, wow, you changed my life. Change their way of thinking. Our beliefs are hard. Our beliefs are formed at such a young age. And it's hard to just change people's way of thinking, but it's great when they say, I never thought of that way before. The way you explained it, I never heard that way before. Wow. Another one is inspire them to act. Give them a system, have them go out and try it. Because with the actions comes results. So if you can inspire is a feeling, and all our actions and our results come from a feeling. If you feel inspired to do it, feel motivated to do it. So if you can inspire somebody to act, wow, right? Give them hope with your story. That gives them some kind of possibility. Well, if she can do it, I can do it too. If you could just do one of these things in your speech, you're guaranteed success. Because then you made it worth their time to come and listen to you speak. It's all about, like I said, feeling good. And feelings lead to the actions, which leads to results. Okay, so now we're going to go into the creating the speech board. I call it the ABCs of creating a speech. I like to make things easy and simple. The first thing, as we talked about, make it all about the audience. I know about this. When it's all about the audience, it takes the pressure off of you. I had a big fear of public speaking. As an entrepreneur, I would get asked to speak all the time. I'm a professional organizer. And I would say no. I'm like, I don't do that. Like, people actually do that? That's crazy. And I remember typing an email to some of my colleagues to see, the library wants somebody to speak on organizing. Does anybody want to do it? And as I'm typing, I'm like, this is crazy. What am I doing? I'm giving an opportunity away because of my fear. And I knew I had to get over this fear. So that's why I joined Toastmasters. And when I first spoke, it did not go the way I wanted it to go. It took time and time to get to where I am today. But the big thing about Toastmasters is when I got evaluated on one of the speeches, they said, Lisa, it's not about you. It's nothing to do with you. It's all about the audience. It's like, oh, you have something to say and you have this passion. And if you just focus on the audience the whole time, it takes all the pressure off of you. And as long as you create value for the audience, yes, those slip ups, you might have forgot to say a few things. And now with technology, you make a few mistakes here and there. But if you create value in somebody's life, it doesn't matter. So it's not about you. It's all about the audience. So I'm going to give you some questions you can, in creating your speech and how to start. So you want to ask yourself, Who is your audience? This is very important. You might not know, like tonight, I didn't really know, but I knew most of you are here because you want to know how to create a speech. So you kind of go with that angle. But you really want to tailor your speech to the audience that's going to show up to hear it, right? To create value. What topic does this particular audience want to hear? So this is where you want to speak about your passion. What do you know well that you can talk about it? And then this subject, did it impact your life somehow? And then how will it impact them? All about them, right? What are the 3 main points you want them to get out of your speech? I say 3, but it really depends on the time you have. In Toastmasters, we only have 5 to 7 minutes to give a speech, so you can barely get 1 main point across. But if you have like 90-minute speech, you might want to go, 5 main points. And the thing is, you can adjust your points to the time you have allotted to give your speech. And they've done research, and it shows that people can remember 3 things. 3 is like over the 3, kind of want to make it, if you have more than 3, you kind of want to make it simple. And you want to think, how are these points going to benefit them? So what do you want them to think, feel, or do differently? And the last is audience relate best to stories. What stories do you have that are related to the 3 main points? Especially if you have a lot of statistics, add a story. You can say, maybe the population of New York against the population of St. Louis. So give them a visual on your story. So you're not just branding statistics, because statistics don't really stay with people, but they'll remember New York and they'll remember St. Louis. And you want to make the experiences interactive too with your stories. Try to get, I know we're meeting on video, but when we're in person, you try to want to make that engagement as much as you can. So that's your A. The next is the B, the brain dump. So you want to get all your thoughts on paper. You just want to go free flow. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about being perfect. You just want to get it all out. What your topic is, think about your audience. You think of all those questions that you just answered. And as you're answering the questions, just dump it on a piece of paper. And then you'll see a first draft starting to form. And then it's time to do your second draft. Now the second draft is going to depend on how long you have to speak. So if you have a short amount of time, this is where you really want to pare down. You start editing. You want to get rid of unnecessary words, unnecessary things that you're talking about if it's not related to the main points. And you really want to focus on the main points. If you're having trouble paring down, just say, does this apply to the main point? And this is where you can do some editing too. And then you want it to organize. This is where you want it to flow. You want it to read like a story. You don't want to be jumping around all over the place. You want it to flow just like a story. You kind of want to stay on topic. Like today, I said I'm going to talk about public speaking. And if I started talking about like this is how we do a PowerPoint and start going on and off about PowerPoint, you're going to be like, well, what about the speaking? What about the speech? So you really want to stay on topic. Keep it simple. They say when you speak in front of an audience, you should be talking to like your audience is a 5th grader. You don't want to use like industry jargon or anything that's over their head, because it might be simple to you if it's in your industry. Especially I see this with like financial speakers when they speak a lot, they speak in acronyms and short abbreviations and they start talking and you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know what they're saying. And you're afraid to ask because you're like, am I the only one that doesn't know what they're saying? So you don't want that reaction from your audience. You want to keep it simple. If you do have industry jargon, simplify it, explain what it is. You could say, well, for my, colleagues in the audience, I know you know what it is, but if you don't, this is what it is. The I to you factor. When you talk I, me, I, you want to add a you. So you would say, I like you, so I did this, You may have done it too. I have done it this way. You may have done it this way. So you want to make your I's to the U's. And you always want to have more U's in the I's. And you do that all in your editing. Now it's time to create your speech. Okay, so this is where the outline comes in. The outline helps it have an organized flow. So the first thing with your outline is the title. You want to generate curiosity and excitement. So I'm speaking on Monday at another presentation on organizing online, and I have the top organizing mistakes to avoid. So kind of create a curiosity because they're like, oh, I want to know those mistakes. And they're kind of excited to hear about those mistakes. If you avoid them, then you'll be organized. So you just want to generate curiosity with your title. The opening, you want to have powerful words to get their attention. Okay, 10 seconds, that's it. That's how much you have to grab somebody's attention. So what powerful words can you use to create interest and make an emotional connection to the audience? It can be a question, you can state a quote, or just make a really powerful statistic. You really want to get their attention, because if you don't get their attention the first 10 seconds, they could, especially online, they could just shut you off, walk away, or they start grabbing their phones. They're not going to really pay attention. But if you get those powerful words and get their attention, they're likely to stay with you. And make that opening relevant to the rest of your speech. And also in the opening, you want to tell them what you're going to tell them. So get them excited, get them to have the anticipation about what listeners are going to expect to learn. Transitions. Okay, this is what you use to go from one subject to the next. You kind of want to make them go with you like you're telling a story. So some examples of transition words would be, let's begin with, so we're starting, also, but, consider, finally, later, different things to kind of transition. Because if you just start going into another subject, they're still on the first subject. You kind of want to let them know that you're going on to the different subject. Then we have our body, which is our main points. It could be 3 main points is usually the standard, but how many main points you need for your speech. So what do you want that audience to learn? And this helps keep the thoughts organized. You want it to flow. You don't want to be jumping around. So I always give you an example of if you were talking about Disney stories that changed your life. And the 3 main points are you have Cinderella, Snow White, and you have Bambi, right? So when you're talking about Cinderella, complete it. Complete everything about Cinderella. And then my next one is Snow White. So if you start talking about Cinderella, and all of a sudden the 7 dwarfs start appearing in Cinderella's section, and then in Snow White's section, all of a sudden you have a deer, not Bambi, it's like you're so confused. You're like, I don't know where she's going with this. I am just so confused. You're just going back and forth, back and forth. You kind of want it to flow. And one thing when people say is like, your speeches are always organized, it's because I follow this outline. And then we have our subpoints. The subpoints are created from your main points. So just like if you're talking about Cinderella, you're going to give all the stories about Cinderella, all the statistics about Cinderella, and then you move on to your next point, Snow White. You're going to 7 dwarfs, whatever it is. So you're going to have your body, then you have your subpoints, and you have your stories and sticks related to each subpoint. Then you have your conclusion. And this is where you reinstate the main points. And you want to relate the conclusion back to the introduction. You want the audience to feel complete. Did you ever attend a speech and they never talked about what they said they would talk about? I know I have, especially at conferences, right? You go to a conference, especially if there's breakout sessions, you choose a breakout session thinking they're going to be talking about the one thing you want to learn, and you get there and they're totally talking about something different. And I know at conferences, when they give that review, that's the first thing people say is like, you didn't talk about the subject. That's the biggest complaint people have. So it's very important. You don't want when it's all about the audience, remember, you don't want them to feel like they didn't get what they were supposed to get. People don't like that. They want to feel complete. They want to walk away like Yes, she answered all my questions. I'm good now. She said what she was going to talk about. And you also want to ask questions before you close. You don't want to end with the question, because all of a sudden somebody could be asking a question or stating a statement, and it can be a negative statement. And then the person comes in and says, okay, your session's over, goodbye. And then it ends on that negative note. And you never want that to happen. You always want to end on a positive note. And you want it to be your word, not somebody in the audience's word. Then the closing. The closing, you want to, call to action, challenge them to do something, give them that like punch, like, ooh, let's go out and give them that wow. Like you really, end it with a bang, I like to say. Okay, this is an example of the outline I use with all my speeches. So we have your title, we have your opening, and then your transition. Then you have your body, and you have main point 1, your subpoints, transition, main point 2, your subpoints. It could be just one point or it could be many points, your transition, 3, except then your conclusion, and then your closing. Okay, some helpful hints for you. Memorize versus internalize. People always ask, should I memorize my speech? Well, I memorized my first speech, and when I went out there, I forgot it. Because when you're nervous and you're memorizing it, your mind just goes blank and it's not good. I always like to, and memorize comes from your head, right? And internalize comes from your heart. You're speaking from your passion. And when you're speaking from your passion, you're more likely not to get nervous and forget it. They always tell you, especially when you are nervous, not to memorize your speeches. So try to internalize as much as you can and have your outline too. And having an outline is good because if you're just reading from a lot of notes and you're nervous, those notes become jumbled words. You can look at it and you just like see just a jumbled mess. So, but when you have the outline, and it's internalized, you're passionate about it, you really know this subject, you just need these key words. And just look at that keywords and say, yes, okay, this is where I'm going with that. This is what I need to, I could write this story or that story. And the story because it's something that happened to you. Audience engagement. It's hard, online, but there is, if you had did a breakout session, there are different things on Zoom you can do. You can put people in rooms. I know I network now online and they put us in little chat rooms, or you can give them, some things that they can do, like a workshop that they can work together. So there's chat rooms or, stay in the chat or different things. So different ways to engage the audience. Now, if you're in person, you can have little exercises. You can have them, get to know, say, hey, get in groups of 2 or 3 and give them a question or different things like that. So what people like about that, they're meeting the person next to them, especially if you're at a conference and you're there and you don't really know anybody in the room. And I do remember a lot of people that when that happened, when I went to a speech, that you remember that person, oh, you were partners, you were buddies in that speaking session. So you want to do different things that, get their engagement. It could be handouts or, be creative. I know I've done things where they did little projects, you have, a minute to, with marshmallows and toothpicks or do something. It depends on, what your topic is and what you're trying to convey, but anything to engage the audience, the better. Eye contact is important, especially when you're in person. You can have notes. Notes are fine, but you don't want to be a talking head. You just don't want to see my head. You kind of want to see my eyes, right? Eyes, when you make eye contact too with other people in the audience, and you don't want to be just like scanning people in the audience and just go from person to person. You think of a point you need to make. You pick a person, a friendly face in the audience, and you say the point. Or it could be a sentence, and if you have another sentence, look at another person, say that, and you just keep going. You don't want to, crazy head or anything like that. You just want to look at the person, make the eye contact. And I know when I'm in the audience and people make eye contact with me, it makes you see, everybody wants to be seen and valued. It really adds to your presentation. The most important thing is have fun. You can have fun in your speech. It doesn't have to be all serious. I know when I first spoke, I was always so serious, and people are like, relax, have some fun. It's okay. Smile. Because when you're smiling, it makes, especially, you know, if you're talking about a happy subject, you know, you want to be smiling too. You don't want to be all serious, and like, it's not going to be that engaging. So look for ways to engage your audience. And I know when my first conference, I was looking, it was 90 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I was speaking about how I got over my fear of public speaking, like 90 minutes. What am I going to do for 90 minutes? I can barely get 20. So I had to get really creative. And so what I thought of was, I wanted to show people when they're passionate about something that they can speak about anything for 3 to 5 minutes in front of an audience. And they were a little skeptical. So I had them get out their phones. I had them go to a recent picture on their phone and get up and talk about it. I was blown away on how powerful that exercise was. People started talking about all these things they overcome. They're like, one was on like a boat, and she was like, this was when I got over breast cancer and I took up rowing, and then I did this. And another person's like, she's like, I have nothing to say. I have nothing and nothing. And she gets up there and she's like, oh, this is a picture of this funeral. My uncle was a war hero, and they just found, like, he was missing in action. They found him, and this was the flag. I was like, what are you talking about? This is great. And everybody was like so excited with their stories that everybody in the audience pretty much had time to get up and speak from their phone, from just a picture on their phone. And it just showed when you're passionate, there was no fear. They were just wanting to express to other people on, you know, an event in their life and how it changed them and how it can impact the people in the audience. So when it didn't make it about themselves and they made it about other people, the fear went away, and it ended up being a really powerful exercise. So I encourage you to be creative with, and don't worry if you have like 90 minutes. If I can do 90 minutes, anybody can do. So just give you a recap of today is, remember, create value. This is so important. If you do this one thing, you're guaranteed success. It's not about you. It's all about the audience. And to create the speech, remember the ABCs. We're going to keep it simple. All about the audience, right? Do all those questions, brain dump. And then you'll see after the brain dump, your speech is starting to form, and then create your speech. And then follow your outline. This is how it's going to flow. This is how you get organized. So you have your title. You want to do that with a wow. An opening, you want to grab their attention. You have 10 seconds. The body, you have 3 main points. Your subpoints to the body. Your conclusion, have your questions before the close, then your closing, which be an action or a challenge. So now this is time for questions. I would love to hear any questions that we have. You could just put it in chat or feel free to unmute.
Thanks, Lisa. That was really great. I know that people were interested in knowing if they could be sent some sort of summary of all of the information.
Yes, if you, perfect question. If you go on my website and you do free resources, there'll be a free speech guide, and everything I said on this speech is in that guide and more. Okay. Or if you don't want to go on my website, just send me an email and I'll happy to get that out to you.
Okay, that sounds good. And then also, how would people go about joining Toastmasters?
Okay, yes, that was my challenge for you. So I'm in Cave Springs Toastmasters, and if you go on Toastmasters.org and check out a Toastmasters in your area. We're all on Zoom now. Most of us are on Zoom because it's hard to get in, you know, spaces to meet right now. I know we used to meet in a church and they're not letting any visitors in. It's just the way it is right now. So we're meeting on Zoom. But the thing about it is we're getting used to speaking on Zoom. It's another life skill because it's going to be a while before we're speaking in person. And it was hard for us to get started. You know, we lost a lot of members because they're like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. But slowly but surely, they're coming back because they're like, yep, this isn't going anywhere. We need to get online. And from Toastmasters.org, you can read all about Toastmasters. And if you put in your zip code, it'll give you Toastmasters next, near you. And we love visitors. We love visitors. And this is only what I went over here today. It's only a small fraction on public speaking, how to create a speech. There's so much more. There's hand gestures, there's eye contact, how to handle a difficult audience is something I'm working on right now in a project. So we have these pathways, and there's, I think, 10 different pathways you can go on. There's coaching, there's leadership, there's a wide variety of things, and you learn so much with each pathway. And then first we were reluctant to go on pathways to, we used to have little books and just go through our books, but it is really opening up a whole new, growth opportunity for a lot of people. And it's been really wonderful. And like I said, it's how I got over my fear of public speaking. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Toastmasters. And it doesn't happen overnight. Probably took me about 6 or 7 speeches before I even got my confidence up, but I just kept pursuing and going back because the people are really nice there. They don't want to see you fail. We're all very supportive of each other. And you get feedback, you get instant feedback. This is what you need to do. This is what, this will be helpful. Try working the stage, do different things. There's a lot to public speaking. There's the ums and the ahs. There's the voice tone, up and down. There's so much to public speaking. I'm only probably at 30% of what I need to learn.
So you said 6 or 7 speeches that you felt comfortable after that? Like, how often would you be able to give a speech if you're in Toastmasters?
How often it's all up to you. We don't force anybody to give a speech. It probably was 6 months before I even spoke. I would just go sit at the meeting, and I would be we have different roles. So it'd be like a timer. So I would time the participants, and I just sat there at the timing machine for like ever, or do the ballot, because we would vote for the best speaker or ballot counter, and we never force anybody to speak. We have table topics where you speak on the fly, and we would always ask the person, do you want to participate in table topics? But once you join Toastmasters, we encourage you to speak table topics, because that's what you're there for. But I still don't like table topics because, it takes me a while to process things, and you have 1 minute to speak, but it really helps you a lot for interview skills, for everything in life, and just communicating with other people. It gives you great communication skills and leadership skills.
It sounds wonderful, actually. So does anybody else have any questions for participants that are here today?
Hi, this is Lori. I do have a couple. So I noticed in the beginning of your speech, Lisa, you said you want to encourage people to change behaviors when you're talking. How long does it take to change a behavior once you hear that? Do you know?
The studies have suggested it takes actually 66 days to change a behavior, and we give up around 30 or 14, 30. Think of your New Year's resolutions. It's all about changing behaviors, right? And we give up way before we have our brains, because what is our brains are just a bunch of neurons and just going and you want to make all that squiggly, highways a straight road. And that takes actually longer, behaviors like quit smoking or different things probably take longer, but the average is 66 days. And the hard part is keeping persistent to stay with that 66 days. But I try to encourage people to stay with it, because you're like this close. You're like this close. You're ready to give up right before that change is going to happen. But it's hard. It is so hard to change a behavior, because we have all those thoughts of, well, who do you think you are speaking about this? And, all the, imposter syndromes and the self-doubt, all that stuff will appear to try to keep you safe. That's the thing about fear. It comes because it's there to keep you safe. We need fear to keep us safe, but sometimes we don't need to be, safe about speaking. We're fine speaking. It's just these thoughts that get into our head that, I can't be doing this. I'm sure it's already been said. All these different thoughts to try to keep you safe, where you have to realize those are just thoughts. They're not really true. That's not your reality. Even though it's been said, what I've said here is nothing new, but it hasn't been said with my story or I probably said it in a different way than other people are going to say. So I'm going to relate to some people, not everybody. And that's the thing. You can't be hung up. I know a lot of people are hung up about being perfect. And well, we have contests in Toastmasters. Every year we have a contest. And one of my goals was eventually to speak at this contest. And I was challenged a year ago, and they said, Lisa, why aren't you speaking in a contest? And I'm like, well, because I'm busy. Contest. I'm crazy. I'm not going to do that. I'm busy. And it's like, Lisa, what contest are you going to? And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I entered this contest just this past year, and I was like, whatever, just entering the contest is a goal. I enter the contest, I'll give the speech, whatever happens, happens. And only 2 people entered the contest, and we had 30 Toastmasters, and nobody else wanted to enter because you have that fear of failure, that fear of self-judgment, all those fears, come in and it's a contest, so you might not win. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. So only two people, me and another lady, entered the contest. Well, come the day of the contest, she had a work emergency, and it was just, I won by default. I still had to give the speech, but here I won. And everybody else were like, well, I should have, if I knew it was going to be that easy to win, I should have. So the thing is, I showed up. So then I won. So then you go to districts. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm at districts giving a speech contest. This is like totally crazy. And I came in 3rd out of 4th. So so I was like, and I didn't even care if I won or not. When I finished that speech, I felt like, oh my gosh, I did this. I won. Internally, I won, because I was like, I thought in never a million years would I enter a contest and actually deliver it and be passionate about it. And I did it. So it was like that feeling that I felt like no trophy could have ever given that away. So I know I went on and on. But.
No, that's fabulous. It's very inspiring.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So I didn't have another question, and this is kind of a funny one, because you were talking about organizing, and then you had mentioned your speech was, what are the top organizing mistakes to avoid? So we want to know, what are they?
Well, would it be fair to give them to you when you can come to my speech on Monday?
Oh,
It's a library. It's a Middendorf library speech.
Okay.
Oh,
It's Monday
okay.
at 6 o'clock. So I'm sure there's still registrants, but
that's awesome.
one of them is organized. Well, I did do a speech from my fellow Toastmasters. I gave them one, so I'll give you one. And if you want to listen to the other 4, you'll have to come on Monday. But the biggest mistake is organizing from the outside in instead of the inside out. And we were just talking about changing behaviors, and actually being organized is a behavior change. So we're always looking for, give me the closet system, give me this, what planner do you use? What's the system? Yes, the systems are important, but if you don't believe that you can ever be an organized person, you kind of have to act like you already are an organized person. So we go into behavior change. And this is why my professional organizers are life coaches, because we are dealing with behavior change. So once you change the behavior and believe that you're an organized person, which kind of sounds crazy because you're like, well, I'm not. But that belief is what's preventing you from being organized. So I give you steps on how to change that belief to become an organized person, and then plus 4 more other mistakes to avoid. But that's just one.
Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I love internalization comes from the heart. That's really a good line to remember. I like it.
Laura, you cut out at the beginning of what you were saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I love when you said memorization comes from the head and internalization comes from the heart. That's a good takeaway. Thank you.
So did anybody else have any questions? Anything in the chat?
I'm curious how long Lisa has been a Toastmaster.
Going on 4 years.
You seem very comfortable with this presentation.
I speak on this a lot. That was my first speech at a conference, was on get over the fear of public speaking. So
I'm also impressed that you did a 90-minute speech. I can't imagine.
that's why I had to get really creative.
Yeah. That's a long time.
I'm like, you're killing me. 90 minutes?
Yeah. What was your topic?
I did a lot of interaction. It was like, let's get in a group.
So what was
I'll
the
discuss
topic
this.
on that,
Yeah.
on that one? What was the topic on that one?
Fear of public speaking.
Oh, that was the 90-minute one.
Yeah,
Okay.
step on, it was step out of your comfort zone onto the stage.
Wow.
Yeah. We did a lot of interaction, and luckily it was a small group. It was get my feet wet. And then that organization that I did that speech with, they asked me back every year. And now I do like a 2-day intensive with another life coach on how to have a joyful business. And we get them on the inside, creating a business from the inside out. So get over those fears and that self-doubt, the imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And she keeps asking us back because we get all, 5s. It's not to brag, but it's just what I'm saying here is what we do. We make it all about the audience, because at the end we say, what did we miss? What do you want us to cover? And they're like, well, can you look at our website? Well, when you're an entrepreneur, your website is like your baby, that's you. So we went on and looked at their websites and we gave them feedback, and that wasn't even part of anything, but that's what they wanted. We gave them, when you give the audience whatever they want, they will give you a good score. They will give you a good review. It's always worked for me. So
yeah. No, it sounds like you have a lot of interesting topics that you cover and lots of interesting things that you get to do. That's great.
Look, speaking, everybody has a story. Everybody has their what they mastered, and you mastered something in life that you can share with other people. Don't think you don't have something to talk about. You do, but we get tied up in the perfection, and it has to be perfect. And I gave you that example of somebody that did show up perfect, and she was insulting her audience. And so it's not about being perfect. It's about caring about the audience, caring about you, wanting to help you. And I know everybody on this call, I know it, has something inside of them, has a story or some life event they went to and they conquered it. And one person, just think about one person's out there, needs to hear that story to change their life. Mm-hmm. So what excuse are you going to give, right? You're going to change somebody's life? And you're like, nope. That's with me. Like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like,
it's too hard.
I know. I don't speak. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I'm introverted. I'm very shy. I don't talk a lot. I'm not very social. So I've come a long way. It does help with your communication skills, especially if you have a business. It helps you get out there, network, talk to people. And actually, if you even work for a corporation, very excellent leadership skills. Because when you can communicate what you need to communicate effectively, you will get promoted. Because a lot of people come and their bosses told them, you need to join Toastmasters to learn how to communicate. Because not being able to communicate is preventing you from getting promoted.
That's very interesting. Because probably most people that aren't aware, they have no idea that could help them with this.
Right. Yeah. Communications. If you can't effectively communicate what you have to say, how are people going to trust you, see you as the expert? They have to get, like I said about feelings, they have to feel. They have to, feel that you are in charge, or, feel that you have confidence to lead, especially in a leadership position. You have to show that confidence. You're not going to show it by being, afraid to speak. That's the thing I learned too, because I was very afraid to speak. I was like, well, how are people going to hire me if I'm afraid to, talk? Not good.
No, and people aren't mind readers either. So if people, if you have great ideas and you just keep them inside, then it's like,
and I'm not the perfect speaker, and I'm still working on it. And I find when I don't go to meetings, Toastmaster meetings, that I do fall back on my ums and ahs. And I'm like, oh, I got to start going back. So it's something that is a skill that does go away from you if you don't keep on top of it. I know our meetings are every week. You don't have to attend every week. Some only have once a month, every 2 weeks. There's a lot of corporations that have Toastmaster groups. as part of their corporation. I know MasterCard, I know there's a lot, you know, insurance, Edward Jones, there's a lot of companies out there that have Toastmasters group because they know, you know, that their employees are just not, you know, effectively communicating, you know, their brand, their business.
Mhm.
And they don't want to fire them. They know they're good people. Everybody has this fear. And so they send them to Toastmasters. We see that a lot. So
That
I
is
challenge
fabulous.
you, all of
Yeah.
you, to join us.
Yeah. I think you've inspired us all. Anybody else have anything else that you wanted to ask? So if there are no further questions, I want to thank you, Lisa, for presenting tonight. I know that we all learned a lot and we're very inspired. And I will go ahead and send out an email later with the links that you mentioned. And also we'll send a survey with that. So if you could go ahead and respond to that. And I would encourage everyone who's here tonight to go ahead and check for additional classes and events on mylibrary.org. You mentioned Monday night, you have the class on organizing. Do you remember what time that was at?
6.
6 o'clock. So yes, so there, if people are interested in that, they can check that out. And just keep checking the library website because we always have something for everybody. So thank you, everyone. And Lisa, it's really been a joy. We've enjoyed it and you've inspired us all. So
Good. I'm glad I
okay. So thank you for your time. Okay, good night, everybody.